There's a quiet currency we all carry, more precious than money, more fragile than glass, our trust. And yet we give it away so freely, like a child offering a toy to a stranger. But what if I told you that trust is a mirror, reflecting the truth of how others see you, and more importantly, how you see yourself? Today we're going to dive into the invisible dynamics that shape who we trust, how we recognize authenticity, and why reading people before we let them in is one of the greatest superpowers we can master. Every tree whispers a different story. Some trees grow tall and steady, their roots deep in the soil. Others sway with the wind, always changing shape. People are like trees. They wear masks, they drop hints, and sometimes they hide behind smiles. So the question is not whether people will lie to us. The question is whether we have the wisdom to see beyond the surface. In psychology, there's a concept called micro-expressions. They are these tiny flashes of emotion that flicker across a person's face in a fraction of a second. Most people miss them. Most people miss them. But when we pay attention and we learn to see what's unsaid, we begin to recognize patterns. You just need to stop and listen, not just to the words people say, but to the space between them. And when you do, you realize that trust is never about a single moment. It's about 1,000 moments, strung together like stars in a night sky. I remember a friend from years ago, let's call her Sarah. On the surface, Sarah was the life of every party, always smiling, always encouraging. But when things got tough, when deadlines piled up, when life got messy, she vanished. And it wasn't because she was bad, it was because she didn't know how to stay. And in that silence, I learned that trust is a two-way street. It's not just about believing in someone else, it's about being brave enough to believe in your own instincts. We often think we trust people because of what they say, but trust is not a word, it's a rhythm. It's how they show up when the world falls apart. It's how they treat others when no one is looking. And it's how they carry themselves when the weight of life is pressing down. Trust is not a gamble, it's a map. And once you learn to read that map, you don't get lost so easily. So here's the paradox. Sometimes the people who seem most trustworthy are the ones who need the most cautious distance. And sometimes the people who seem distant, even cold, have a warmth waiting just beyond the surface. But you don't know it until you slow down, until you test before you trust, and until you give yourself permission to guard your peace like a precious flame. Because the wrong person, when they slip into your world, can burn it all down before you even realize what happened. But the right person, when you find them, they become the wind beneath your wings. And so as we stand at the edge of this forest, ask yourself, what trees are you letting grow close to you? What roots are you planting in your life? And what will happen when you finally learn to read people before you trust them? Because just beyond this forest lies a truth that has the power to set you free. The moment you begin to see trust as a dance between patterns and intentions, something shifts inside you. You start to understand that trust is not a leap into the dark. It's a quiet series of steps into light. And every time you slow down, you realize that your intuition is a muscle that grows stronger the more you use it. Think about the people you admire, those rare few who seem to radiate trustworthiness. It's not because they never make mistakes, it's because their actions tell a story even when words fail. They don't just speak, they build a bridge between who they are and who they aspire to be. And if you pay attention, you'll see that this bridge is made of consistency. Little acts that over time create a foundation you can stand on. There's a reason why ancient philosophers like Aristotle spoke of practical wisdom. It wasn't some lofty concept. It was a daily practice of observing how people behave and asking yourself, does this person walk their talk? Do they show up even when the spotlight fades? And when you start asking those questions, something magical happens. You stop giving your trust to strangers who just sound nice, and you start giving it to the quiet warriors, the ones who build a life of meaning brick by brick. I once met a man who was a stranger to everyone but himself. He was a carpenter who lived in a small coastal town, and he built his life like he built his furniture, steady, precise, and full of care. At first I didn't trust him. I thought he was just another quiet loner, but as weeks passed, I saw how he treated strangers, how he kept his word even when it was inconvenient. And in that slow unfolding, I realized that trust is like a bonsai tree, grows in silence, pruned by tiny actions, never rushed. And this is where the power lies. Every time you test before you trust, you reclaim your freedom. You don't become cynical, you become sovereign. And sovereignty is simply the ability to choose who gets your time, who gets your trust, and who gets your heart. So the next time someone tries to claim a piece of you, pause. Let the silence speak. Let your instincts guide you, because when you do, you realize that trust is not a risk. It's your lifeline. And this is just the beginning. Stay with me, because in the next part, we're going to unravel the hidden rules of how we decide whom to trust, and how by mastering this art, we can build a life that is both protected and full of possibility. As the final pieces fall into place, a quiet certainty begins to settle in your heart. You realize that reading people is not about perfection, it's about patience. It's about knowing that every human being is a universe of contradictions, shaped by their past, their fears, and their dreams. But when you learn to hold that paradox, you also learn to choose wisely. You stop rushing, you stop hoping the trust will be handed to you like a gift. Instead, you cultivate it like a garden. with care, boundaries, and a deep respect for your own intuition. This is where the real magic happens. Trust is not just a filter, it's a mirror. It shows us who we are when we dare to protect our energy. When we dare to say no, when we dare to walk away from a charming smile that doesn't ring true. And when you see it in yourself, when you realize that you are worth the kind of trust you so freely give, something inside you shifts. You no longer shrink back, you stand taller, and suddenly the right people appear like stars aligning because you've created a space that only authenticity can fill. The truth is, we are all walking each other home, as the poet says. And each person you meet is a guide, a teacher, a mirror that reflects back a piece of you. But only if you take the time to see them, to listen, and to let your intuition be a guide. So I leave you with this. Trust is not a risk. It's a responsibility. It's a compass that points you toward your truest path. And if you dare to protect it, if you dare to test before you trust, you will build a life rich with integrity, meaningful connection, and an inner peace that no storm can shake. And if this speaks to you, if you feel that spark inside, then subscribe, because together we're on a journey to build lives of wisdom.